They would have starved.
Okay, that was moments ago. President Trump talking in Scotland. Joining me now to discuss all of it is our political panel, former Republican Senate candidate for New Jersey, Alex Zdan, and political analyst and columnist for The Independent, Ahmed Baba. Thank you guys for joining us today. A lot to talk about. We just heard from Trump on sending aid to Gaza. We'll start there. The U.S. has really walked away from ceasefire talks with Israel at this point. So where do you think we should stand now in the U.S. in light of the pause in fighting? Alex, I'll start with you.
Well, the president and Secretary Rubio have become frustrated with Hamas's lack of negotiation in good faith. But as President Trump said during his availability, it doesn't mean that America is abandoning the peace process. The United States very much, and President Trump very much, wants the killing to end in Gaza, wants Israel to be safe and secure, wants there to be a solution to what's really been decades and decades of bloodshed. President Trump stepping up humanitarian efforts to assist the Gazans on the ground there, and obviously going to talk to Prime Minister Keir Starmer shortly. The UK has been coordinating food and aid drops with the Jordanians. So the United States is still very much involved and under President Trump, still seeking a just and secure and peaceful end to this horrible conflict.
Ahmed, I want to talk about what's happening with the trade deal, but I want to give you an opportunity to respond to what we're talking about with the U.S. aid.
Yeah, I mean, I think clearly this pause is good. I want it to be extended. It needs to be longer. But the thing about what Trump said there, he said if the U.S. wasn't in there, then Gazans would be starving. Well, the thing is, Gazans are starving, right? We have 2.1 million population. The UN says about 1/3 haven't eaten in days. We're seeing 100,000 women and children that are facing severe malnutrition. So this needs to stop. It needs to really expedite this delivery of aid, and hopefully we can get that done. But really, I think what this comes down to is more pressure needs to be applied to Netanyahu, because this halt on aid being entered over the last few months has caused this situation. And Trump repeated that this narrative that Hamas has been stealing all of the food. The New York Times just reported that there's not a strong basis. There has been, of course, some incidents, but there's not a strong basis for systemic robbery of this aid. So I just think more pressure needs to be applied to Netanyahu, because the conditions on the ground are horrific.
Yeah, and I also want to talk about this trade deal, because we're talking about percentages now with high stakes in the economy. Trump saying that 15% is the lowest he would go for a tariff on the EU. He just said that moments ago. Trump and the EU commissioner said that there's a 50-50 chance for this deal. So is that going to deliver results for Americans? That's what everybody back here wants to know, Alex.
I think so. I mean, it's a general rule of politics and political optics that you don't get the leaders into a room together unless you know you're going to get to a good result. I think we're seeing encouraging signs. We're seeing President Trump show that he's got a floor to what he will negotiate to, 15%, that fair number that we could very well see negotiated to a good conclusion within just a few days. Don't forget, the EU economy is absolutely huge. In pure purchasing power, it's number 3 behind the U.S. and China in just its sheer size. It's a $19 trillion economy. It is number 2. President Trump is absolutely right to pursue a big overarching trade deal with this big trade partner. Now, I just want to point out one small element that could seal the deal here is the talk about liquefied natural gas from the U.S. coming to the European Union. That would be a win for all sides, because more U.S. natural gas getting exported is good for the U.S. It is also good for the Europeans, because it puts them less dependent on Russian oil, especially Germany. Putin can choke off the flow of oil to Europe during the wintertime. More American liquefied natural gas, if it can be used in their plants, would be an absolute good thing and a win for the president and the United States here.
Yeah, I'm curious, Ahmed, do you think that 15% is a fair number? You know, this Thursday marks the start of court hearings actually examining the legality of Trump's tariffs. And it's obviously one major sticking point in Trump's economic agenda. So we'll talk about the challenges of that, but also I wanted to get your take on that 15% floor.
I mean, I think, the 15% floor is still higher than what we had previously, right? And I think what Trump needs to articulate here is what in this deal will offset that. What in this deal provides cost relief to Americans? Because that is still the key concern. And 15% still is very high, in my opinion. Of course, you have the 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum. You have these other tariffs on auto parts. Like, what is going to provide relief for Americans. That's what needs to be articulated. And this is why his approval rating on the economy is plummeting, because there's not really a clear articulation of the goal here. First, it was let's box in China. Then it's, oh, we want to, create a rebalancing. What is the goal, and what is the coherent benefit that can be articulated to the American people? Because I still think 15%, you're just going from a threat of 30 to 15, as opposed to something that I think would provide relief for Americans that are concerned about inflation.
All right, Alex, I'm going to give you a quick last word.
Well, if you heard von der Leyen just live on your air, she agreed to President Trump's premise. So the representative for the world's second largest economy agrees there needs to be a rebalancing. That's exactly what President Trump has set out to do, and he is doing so. And the words from von der Leyen today are a good sign, a positive step today.
All right, you guys, Republican strategist Alex Zdan and political analyst and columnist for The Independent, Ahmad Baba. Thank you guys for being here today. I really appreciate it.